people are getting overnight recognition, and they get to the stage, they perform woefully. All right. So at this point, we've learned the basics of public speaking. But what still matters is that we all try as much as possible to still practice. The group will forever remain. So that after this training, you have any challenge, you need access to materials, you need access to resources to aid your public speaking journey, you can always reach out to us in the group. And we definitely do what we can to help you. Of course, we all can be there and we'll get a solution to any problem at all. No, it's impossible. Just like the way my father used to say, it's impossible. Impossible plus cannot. Impossible. All right? So we move into another session, and to lead us on that session is one of the great men Africa has been privileged to produce. The symbol and an epitome of greatness. And this is evident in the things he does. If you are not, or if you don't see him eating or sleeping or doing the normal activity, you can catch him. Where else you can catch him is in the writing and speaking field. He is an amazing writer, a professional speaker, and someone that I've come to respect a whole lot because I know him very well. He's so loaded, so filled. I'm not hyping, but that's just the way it is. It's evident when you saw him lead the first session, right? So once again, you may be seated, but I just want the jam of hands as I bring to stage Mr. Olayiwola Oladeinde. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
So privileged to be coming up after I've been filled, I've been powered. So in case I wear your attention out, forgive me in advance. All right, so this is the second time of being in your faces, and I hope that this will be better than the first. Amen?
Amen.
All right, we want to look at storytelling, and this is a massive session because storytelling has come to stay in the field of communication. But before then, how many of us remember this program on TV there, Tales by Moonlight?
Yeah.
How many of us watched it? Hey, Tales by Moonlight. Okay. What made you enjoy the program?
Stories.
Okay.
The children listening to one another.
So as a child then, how did you feel watching the program?
I wish I had someone who could tell me stories like she did.
Okay.
Not just telling me stories. Her way of telling stories, or storytelling rather, is captivating. She makes it look like you're right there in the midst of the story, like you're involved. She carries you along. So I wish I had someone who could do that to me.
Wow, amazing. I remember those days when I lived with my grandma for some time. So at night, she would always tell me stories. So I heard a lot of stories, and as a child, I used to believe that those things happen. Like, these people didn't go to school, they didn't learn storytelling, but I don't know where this ability to tell stories, where it came from for our grandparents. Like, they tell you, and your mom is calling you, but you don't want to answer because your grandmom is telling you a story, and everybody just gathered around and enjoying the experience. And you hear stories and people are like this, some people's mouths are opened, unconsciously. You are just there enjoying the experience. And at the end of the day, something usually happens. After the end of the story, they ask us what we learned. What do we observe at those points? Do we have something to say? Do we usually have something to say and share as lessons?
Yes.
Even without anybody pointing those lessons out?
Yes.
So what do we think is good in that experience? What value do you think comes from that experience? If I can tell you a story, I want you to learn. In the course of telling the story, I didn't point out anything you should learn, but at the end of the story, you learn everything I didn't even ask you to learn. How would you describe such process?
I'll call that education.
It's educational. So we can say stories are educational, okay? Because it can teach you something without actually teaching you. Alright, you just come out of a story and they begin to ask what did you learn, and you are instituting lessons upon lessons upon lessons, and at the end of the day, the storyteller just needs to confirm your lessons. And talk about the exciting part that you can decide to. Why do people sit with Z-World and watch for hours? I know some of us can, we don't like it because it's too fake. But how do people not miss certain programs on Z-World?
I think Z-World adequately manages suspense.
They manage suspense. So like everything.
There is no form of suspense. If you say American movies, yeah.
Does anybody here like Z-World? If all of us don't like it, let's just leave it. Does anybody like Z-World? Okay, nobody. So let's leave out Z-World. All of us, our bias will be towards. So, but then there are people who, when they watch Z-World, they cry. Okay, how many of us have seen Indian movies that made us cry?
Of course, yeah.
So what made us cry?
It's emotional.
What made the story what made the movie emotional?
I think it's
They paint the story, I mean, the picture.
You
feel that
sense of
Appealing.
to the part of either experience
emotions, like
or
trigger emotions.
Triggers emotion.
reminds you of something, or I don't know.
You're just in there, like
Probably you feel.
You are just in there, so it draws you in to the experience, right? So you feel involved, especially when the story is something you've experienced before, or something that connects with your everyday reality. Okay, and the truth is that every time we communicate, we are trying to touch two parts of our audience: their mind and their heart. Okay, their mind has to do with their reasoning, their intellectual faculty. Their heart has to do with their emotions. But I can tell you for free that usually when it comes to the subject of persuasion, people and audiences are driven by their emotions many times than by their reasoning. Earlier on we were discussing and we were saying love is blind, right? How would you imagine that somebody seeing how dangerous a young man can be to her still says that the more he beats me, the more I love him. I just can't leave him. We've come a long way. Now you are wondering, where is your mind? Like, where's your brain? Have you left this thing somewhere? You wouldn't blame them because the compelling part of the heart is powerful, is high. Like, you can shut down your reasoning because of an emotion. Very powerful. You can shut down reasoning. That's why somebody can go into debt to buy what they like, not even what they need, what they like. The likeness is that intense emotion, they want to have it and they can get it at any cost. If somebody is telling you an interesting story and somebody else is trying to distract them, what happens? Do they forgo the story or they fight the distraction? Usually they will fight the distraction. So one of the ways to even help yourself as a speaker is when you tell stories, you make people fight the distractions you could have been fighting for them. So rather than calling for attention, these people are gaining attention to give to you. When it's time for Tales by Moonlight, you see people rush to do everything that can stop them. If they have to watch late, you watch it earlier. Or Super Story, if you remember. Super Story made people do a lot of things. Hang on windows, climb stone, settle with your neighbor, make friends with your enemy. Just when you hear, you can enter without anybody saying stop there. So you see that when it comes to storytelling, people become the facilitator of their own attention. They help you gather that attention and give it to you because what you are serving them is touching their hearts. So storytelling is a way to the heart of your audience, and like we mentioned, it's educational, it's appealing, it's emotional, it's relational. People can easily relate to stories, especially if there are stories that connect with them. But then the challenge for some speakers is that they don't see storytelling as essential. Some undermine storytelling because when they think of storytelling, they just think of something casual. So maybe we are just catching fun. And when I'm speaking with my guys, let me tell them story. They forget that storytelling can work anywhere. In business situation, in tough conflict situations, in any kind of situation, you can weave in storytelling. Storytelling doesn't mean you are unserious. Telling stories doesn't mean you are unserious. Because sometimes people say storytelling is for children now. This is a corporate presentation. Why should I tell stories? They will think I'm unserious. That's wrong. Okay? It doesn't make you unserious. It doesn't make you look like a joke. It doesn't make you look like a child. The truth is, see, we all do not outgrow that childish part of us that loves stories. Some people may love stories of money. They just want to hear how money is rolling in and rolling in. Some want to hear inspiring stories. But we all do not outgrow that part of us that still tickles when we hear stories. So, your ability to use storytelling helps you to connect with every kind of audience. Children, youth, elderly people. Regardless of the situation, storytelling can work. Storytelling can work. So, what makes storytelling powerful? Those are the things you have mentioned. It's educational. It can teach people without even teaching them. Storytelling, you use story to become the teacher. Without even saying, pick this, pick that, pick. I've had situations whereby I tell stories and I ask people what they learn. And I end up getting more lessons than I would have shared. Remember, your audience are your audience not because they are not smart, but because they have something you have, they need something you have that they want to get. So don't say that because they are listening to you, they cannot deduce. They can. And usually the lessons that people deduce stays longer with them. When people learn what they should do by themselves, they can retain it stronger and they are much more proud to utilize it because there is this ego that comes with the fact that this lesson, I discovered it and I used it. Regardless of the fact that it was facilitated by somebody, but this fact that they didn't tell me what to do, I discovered what to do. If you realize many times when people share their stories of how they moved from low to high, you will hear statements like, at a point in my life, I discovered. At a point in my business, I realized. It doesn't mean they came to that realization by themselves. Probably somebody had helped them, they read a book, whatever. But there is this joy that comes from learning by yourself. So when you give people stories, they can learn by themselves. It is engaging, it appeals to them emotionally, and it encourages listening. People wouldn't really struggle to hear stories. They will be more eager to hear stories. Once you said, drop the line, I want to tell you a story. Or there's this story I heard. Or there's this story I'd like to share with you. People's attention just, let's hear a story. So you really won't have people struggling to listen to you if you're a good storyteller. Especially if you're able to weave in stories into your presentation. Or better still, build your presentation around your story. I'm already giving you ways to use your story. Many ways to use your story. To use it as an opener. Alright? To use it as an intermediate. Use it to close your speech. But then you can also build the entire speech around the story. So how do you do this? You tell the phase of the story, you drop lessons, you emphasize your lessons, you move to the next phase of the story, you emphasize your lessons. For example, I'm telling you a story about how I left my corporate world as an educationist and how I came into the writing, the training, and the consulting field. Now, I can begin by sharing my experiences in the educational sector and tell you about the day I made that decision to step out of that industry. Now, when I tell you that on so day, I came to the realization that there is something I needed to do more. There is a higher calling on my potential, and that required me to resign of my work as an educationist. Now, I had my fears, and one of those fears was that how would I cope in an entirely new industry? However, I made the move. I resigned on so day, blah, 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 blah. And that leads me to my first lesson. Never be afraid to take the next step. Now, have I finished my story? No. But that phase, I am drawing lessons from it. So I can tell you what happened before I made the decision, drought lessons. What happened during the decision, drought lessons. What happened after I made the decision, drought lesson. What happened, what is happening currently because of the decision and drought lessons. So I feel this is even a good way because people want to know where your story ends. So they have no option than to keep following you until the end of your presentation. Does this make sense already?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so storytelling is beneficial. Storytelling is very, 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 very powerful. So, how then, what kind of stories should you tell? I want us to just go straight to the point. No need to. What kind of stories should you tell? Or what kind of stories can help you? I want us to do an exercise after now. I want us to create our own stories. That's why I'm trying to be as quick as we can so that we can get to that session. What kind of stories move you? Let's begin with that. Because what moves you is likely to move everyone else. So, what kind of stories do you love to listen to? From speakers. The stories your pastor tells. What kind of stories do your pastors tell that excite you? What kind of stories do your favorite authors tell that excite you? What kind of stories do you love to follow? What kind of documentaries? What kind of seasonal movies do you love to watch? What kind of stories move you? Let's hear. Everyone will say something. Alright.
Like transformational stories.
Transformational stories. What kind? From
Maybe like from someone from an impoverished background.
Okay.
So
From grass to grace story. That is one story you can put that. And one story, one of the stories that can power your presentation. Grass to grace stories, or rag to riches story, or zero to hero story, or nothing to something story. That is a story that works almost in every situation. It doesn't work in all situations, but it works in almost every situation. There are places you go, your rag stories will stop you rather than inspire men. Once they just hear suffer in your lineage, you won't suffer. I'm sorry. Because there are people that really never suffer.
Yes.
There are people that didn't suffer. So not everybody has a rag to riches story. Some have riches to greater riches and unending riches. So you want to inspire them with your rag to riches story. They don't even understand where you are coming from. So I suffer, like checked under the sun, and they are like, which sun? What sun? Not that they helped us to understand sun, they wouldn't even experience. So you are telling them mosquito bites, and there are people that have never been bitten by a mosquito. Say I trekked, some people have never trekked. You know, it looks unreal to you because, you know, from your own frame of reference. Alright, some people you tell them that there are places in this country that doesn't have lights, and they are trying to understand what not being without power supply means. You are giving them all the pictures they can't understand because it's not in their frame of reference. Remember what we said about meaning? Meaning is not in what you are saying, but in actually in the experiences of the person. So there is no way I can describe poverty to a child that does not have a poor person in their lineage in the last 10 generations. No matter how good I am, I only understand it myself. I pray that maybe after some years, the child, through the revelation of the Holy Spirit, can understand poverty. But if it's from your explanation, they can't. You have you tasted Gary? Have you cook rice with Indomie Maggi? Now, you will be saying all those things and you feel inspired, but you know, when you say those things, and like you said, all your stories are not relevant in every situation. When you go to the slum, you can tell them rag to riches story because they are still dealing with rags. When you go to the big guys, you don't mention rags. You don't like to hear it, you don't understand. So you have to explain rag, you use your whole session to explain rag, and they now judge you that the way this guy can explain rag, are you sure you understand riches? So he has too much understanding for rags, maybe he shallow understanding for riches, let's not trust him. So, but that's by the way. So rag to riches stories, they work, especially when you're inspiring audiences. Okay.
Also have creative stories.
Like
Development of a new technology.
Development of something that never existed before. For example, imagine Elon Musk speaking about world in the space, what they are going to do in 2050. And they are telling you that in 2050 you can take a vacation to the moon. In 2050, if your president offends you, you can just find money and start living in Mars. Now, you just imagine that these things have not happened though, but the way they are, this place they are taking you to, you don't know it, but you like to go. So, creative stories. We also have what we call spark line stories, stories that sell hope. This was the story that Martin Luther King told the people of America. I have a dream. Someday, the child of the black and the child of the whites, they will hold hands across the street. Someday, the black will have a voice. Now, at that time he was saying those things, they really didn't understand what those things meant, but it created a spark within them. So you can tell sparkline stories that can create sparks. For example, you are speaking to married people. Probably you are talking about handling marital conflict. Okay, you can tell a story of how it is possible that people can live a life of little conflict. Or for example, everybody in the audience, maybe you did a sampling and you realize that everybody in the audience has gone through some kind of terrible conflict that they now even believe that their marriage can't be sweet again. But then you tell them a story of somebody who had gone through such, maybe it's your own story, you've gone through such, now you're experiencing a blissful marriage. Now, that may not be their reality at that moment, but that story has already painted a possibility for them. So, it gives them something to aspire towards, and it gives them hope. It gives them hope. So, sparkline stories, which other stories can really help? Discovery stories, how you found yourself, how you encounter stories too. It works well. Like, how did you, for example, you discovered a product, you've launched an outline or an outfit line that is doing well, and people are wondering, how did this idea come to you? So as a speaker, when you're looking for stories, these are clues to stories you can build for your presentation. So how did this idea come? Now let me tell you something about storytelling. You see, as a speaker, you must not learn how to blow, you must not blow things out of proportion, but you must learn how to enrich things. Some of us, our story is just 2 lines. I left Lagos, I left village, enter motor. My brother put me in apprenticeship, and 5 years I've made it. Short story, If you tell that story, nobody gets inspired. In 2 minutes, you are done. So you must then have to now bring elements into that story. I'll share how we can do that in the course of the teaching. So encounter stories, process stories, how your journey evolved, how you moved, how you came about that business. Those of us that are entrepreneurs, you should sit down one day and create a story around your process. How did you decide to go into entrepreneurship? First of all, teaching kids, what inspired you to become, because when they get you on stage to talk about your profession, these are places you can begin to penetrate without having any frights. You can begin your speech telling your story, it will ease you. You can make your story your whole session. You can build your message around it. Alright, so you should begin to look at how you can build stories around this. Then, stories around history. Tell stories about history. For example, if I am coming to talk about the new Nigeria on a day like this, it will do me good if I bring about the story of independence. So 62 years ago, some men decided that it was time for Nigeria to have a life of its own. This man, by the name of blah 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 blah, approached the British, blah 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 blah, we want this. Then the whole and today we are celebrating the independence of our dear nation. But the question is, are we truly free? So you've told them the history, because truthfully, a lot of people just knew Nigeria got independence October 1st, 1960. What led to that independence, many don't know. How it happened, many don't know. So history stories. You are in the tech world, what is the history of your industry? You are in the fashion world, what is the history of your industry? You are in the accounting world, what is the history of what you are doing? So by the time you get into a session, you can begin to share these stories with your audience. Is that making sense? Are we getting something already? Alright, so here are a few tips. Here are a few tips on storytelling before I tell us how we can create our stories and deliver them to get results. During storytelling, always put your audience at the center. I see a lot of speakers make this mistake. They tell their stories and get lost in it. You know, your story is sweet, especially when people are vibing well to it. They are saying, woo, hey. Yeah, you keep saying the story until time goes out. And it looks like you only came to talk about yourself. I have seen this happen because as a speaker, I listen to other speakers. I sit in audiences. So I get feedback from audiences. So I've been in situations where people are listening to a speaker and they are busy tapping themselves. It's just bragging. Meanwhile, as a speaker, I understand that what that speaker was trying to do is to build credit, is to build that connection. That if I did it, you can do it. So I suffered, I slept under the bus, but today I am controlling 15 billion worth of business. I have 35 people working under me. I pay close to 100 people. I send children to school here and there. There's nothing I want that I can't get. I travel first class, blah, blah, blah. And they are just trying to do these things to give you hope that they too that came from a low beginning can get them. Meanwhile, the audience has said, the guy did brag. I do first class. Start hearing stuff like that. So if you should know how to not, even though you are telling your story, not look like the center of the story. So why you should always refer to your audience. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this because you, I want you through my story. I want you. You can see through my story, you. So you. They begin to see that it's not really about you. You are just using you as a tool to make them better. I don't know if you are getting it. So always make sure your audience remains at the center of your story. 2, Don't just tell stories, create an experience. Don't just tell stories, create an experience. Don't just tell stories, create an experience. So don't just say, I want people to hear my story. You should already know what you want people to feel from your story. Should they be inspired? You should know how to tell the story in a way that they catch that inspiration. Because truly, what makes a story exciting is not even in the words. How many of us have seen people tell stories with bad grammar, but still enjoy it? And then you hear fine, polished speakers tell boring stories. It happens. So it's an experience. People don't just want to hear words, they want to feel what you feel. That is why, if you remember in my first session, I was telling you about pitch, pace, projection. These are the elements that will transform your story from just recitation of words to an experience. For example, you say, oh, 15 years ago I was clueless. I really didn't know what career to do. Maybe you're a fashion designer and you want to tell your story about how you came into fashion. I was a young lady roaming the streets of Lagos, and I needed something for myself. I was at that point where I knew something more was coming. I wanted to do more, but I really didn't know how to place my hand. Now you go, you ask a question. How many of you have ever been in that position? Then you see people raise their hand. You are beginning to create an experience. Now you have a tribe of people who have felt the way you felt. So those kind of people are no longer listening to words. They are now listening to their own story, their own reality through you. So there are points in your stories you ask for audience response. There are points in your stories you ask for others' feedback. For example, you get to a point and you can like, if you were me, what would you have done? And people begin to enter into your story. People begin to enter into your reality. People begin to offer you free counsel. People begin to give you word of wisdom, quotable quotes. Say, if I were you, this is what I would do. Listen, just listen, these 5 things. 5. So you can see, you bring an experience. There are times you can work out a story that can make people cry. Because stories are not all about positive emotions. The response should be positive, but the emotion may not always be positive at the beginning. So there are times where you really need to make people feel bad for them to feel good. You need to call them to that awareness of pity, of soberness, before you now push them up to becoming good. So stories should create an experience. Number 3, you should understand that every story has a structure. Every story has a structure. Stories are not random information. If you don't plan your stories well, you will fumble with it. And every story has 3 basic elements in its structure. There is the beginning, there is the middle, and the end. There is the beginning, the middle, and the end. There is the beginning, the middle, and the end, or what you would call the climax. The end can be the climax, that point where things go well, or that point where things go bad. For example, somebody can begin with bad beginning, rough process, good ending. You want to teach people that anything is possible. Also, somebody can have good beginning, bad process, rough ending. You want to tell young people about the need for abstinence. You tell them about a young girl or a young guy that was doing so well until they began to relate with people who influenced him to make wrong decisions. And at the end of the day, he contracted an incurable disease. So would you want this kind for yourself as young people? No. Then listen to me. If you don't want to end up, who's Jide? No, Jide. If you don't want to end up like Jide, I want you to give me 5 minutes of your time. 5 minutes of your time. Before you say, Auntie, take all our life. Take all our time. You don't want to be like Jide. So you know how to turn. It's not always from bad to good. Sometimes it can be good to bad, so that you can turn them back to good or catch their attention. Alright, fear works a lot for people.
Yes.
Fear. When people are afraid of something, they do everything to avoid it. They listen to when some of these prophets, when you have a bad dream and you go to them, they can get more from you than when you have a good dream. I mean, if I have gone to prophet to complain about good dream, it's I have a dream, I went to America, I'm just disturbed. Like I need your prayers. They won't come, they will claim it by themselves. But when they see masquerade pursuing them with cutlass and cane, say, you don't understand, you don't understand. And at that point, there's entry. If you tell them that jump and hit your head on the ceiling 13 times, 13 and a half times, around 2:15 p.m., they will do it. You do with joy. You even ask the man, should I have one in case the masquerade did not come quick? So you get, so fear, you can use that also. So every story has a structure. What are the elements of the structure? Number one?
Begin.
Secondly?
Middle.
And what?
End.
Every story has a call to action. Every good story has a call to action. There should always be something it is driving to. There should be something it is driving to. Okay, so this is a part I've been looking up to. I want us to create stories. Our personal stories. I don't have time for us to look at different areas of our life, but I want us to create a story for our brand. I want us to create a story. Practical class now, so all of us get ready to create stories. We are going to create stories for our brand. So I want you to think deep. What do you want to be known as? That's where it begins from. Your brand. What do you want to be known as? By the grace of God, I lead an organization. It's called the Joe Tribe. And that organization, the full name is the Joseph Tribe. And the idea is that we empower young people to succeed and make a difference with their gift. That tribe is rested on the life of Joseph. How, with his ability to interpret dreams, organize, and lead, he got to the top, even though he started from the slum. Okay? So, when God gave me that vision, I asked him, I said, Sir, I am not at that top yet. So, what do you want me to tell people? So he told me, he said, your leadership is a movement leadership. You rise with others. So I am not that person that he wants to take there first per se, and others are now, he wants to move me so that as I take a step forward, 1,000 others take with me. As I take another step, 1,000 others take with me. So it's a movement journey. So I had to look at my own story and see how it connects. How several years ago, I had to make some terrible, tough decisions just to go in line with my vision. Now, when I want to inspire young people to follow their gift, I tell them my story. I am somebody that understands the essence of help. So there are some stories I have created in that line. So you can have different versions of story for different aspects of your life. Okay, if you teach young people on how to demonstrate good etiquette, you cannot tell the same story when you want to inspire young people to abstain from sexual immorality. Okay, if you have similar experiences that can connect in those fields, you can build different stories around it. But for today, this is not an exhaustive class on storytelling. Let's just touch it here and there. Let's look at how we all can create a story for our brand. So I want to ask us, what is your brand? I love engaging people. I just love it when people think. What is your brand? Let's go. What is your brand? Yes, sir. What is your brand?
I think your brand is what people recognize you.
What is your brand?
My brand.
Yes.
Okay. I don't really get it.
Okay. But you know what brand means?
Yes.
And what is your own brand?
As a person.
My brand as a person.
Mm.
Okay. I'm seen to be a detail-oriented person.
Okay.
I'm seen to be meticulous.
Meticulous.
I love excellence.
Okay.
And I like when things are done in the right way at the right time.
Awesome. So you mean that when people can say these things about you, you'll be satisfied. That's what you want people to know you as. That's your personal brand. You know, you can have personal brand, professional brand, business brand. Okay? But I am particular, okay?
So you just mentioned personal, professional, business, and personal.
Yes.
Can all of them still be like your personal brand?
Let me tell you the difference. Your personal brand is who you are, like she was saying earlier, without every of these things. Your personal brand is the core of your personality. You can take your personal brand into any other kind of situation. For example, you are meticulous. You love excellence as a person. You can be an excellent public speaker. Your personal brand is excellence. You can carry that quality into public speaking and you become an excellent public speaker. You can carry that into tech and become an excellent tech personnel. You can carry that into counseling and become an excellent counselor. Your personal brand is that part of you that follows you everywhere, so that when anybody gives you anything to do, they will see that thing in it. That's your personal brand. That's your personal brand. So I like the fact that you mentioned qualities. You mentioned effect, so that when you do things, people see excellence. When you do things, people see that you are detailed oriented. That is your personal brand. So you can decide if it works in other sectors to take all of them there, or you amplify a part of your personal brand in other areas, or you deliberately craft a brand for other areas. Big discussion. Maybe Mr. Akolade can hold another session for us on branding. It's worth it, because I really understood branding. It took me a long time, because there are a lot of, if you go online, you come back confused. A lot of people have many articles about branding, but I learned from one particular man. He said, the experience people have when they come in contact with you, that's your brand. The experience people can testify of. So this thing you told me is your professed brand. How do I know it's your brand? Such that if I never knew you and I encountered you, I could tell people that you're excellent. That is your brand. You don't need to explain it. I just need to experience it. I will do the explanation on your behalf. So that's your personal brand. Okay? So you can now begin to take that brand into everywhere. As a professional, it's good to have a personal brand. Your personal brand can go into any industry with you. So you can be an excellent banker. You can be an excellent fashion designer. You can be an excellent teacher. Because excellence is your personal. You are not doing it for the job. You are it for you first, before you are taking it into any other thing that you do. So let's leave that, so that we will not turn this to branding. There are many things you can do to promote your brand. Okay, let's leave that. So let's create stories. Let's assume. Let's just speak. Let's speak a professional story. Professional brand story. Let's not do personal. Personal can sometimes get complicated, because some people are still trying to understand who they are. So let's do professional. Your business. What's the story behind your business? Let's craft a story behind our businesses. Okay.
That one is very easy.
Okay. Being a teacher,
Okay.
I could say something I've done before, and that's why it's come again.
Okay.
I'm into kids, I love kids a lot. And
Okay.
for some reason, I think I was telling him yesterday when I got back home, I had an issue with a particular child and I felt like, why do you feel you owe them so much? Why do you feel you owe, there is a part of you that feels like you owe them success. You just have to be successful.
Okay.
Now, let me drop that and then create my story. I could, probably because I want her to do well or I want him to do well, I could tell the story of, okay, when I was young.
Okay, fine. I like that part you want to take. Let me help you make it easier. And likewise everybody else. Your brand story should have some elements. I like what she started with. The people that she just had this inexplainable passion to just ensure that they succeed, and she's like, why should I even feel that I should have a hand in their success? So your brand story should consist of the people whom you have compassion for, the people who you have been sent to, the people who unlock your compassion, the people who you just want to be of help to. All right. Then you can also contain periods which talk about your time. It can also contain places. You should have a plot, and then ultimately you should have a purpose. So the people you want to help, kids, business owners, entrepreneurs, creatives, and period, the time you began to nurture that passion, the time that awareness came to you. Okay, where were you when it happened? I was in Lagos. Okay, what's the story? I came from Lagos. When that urge came, I followed the urge. I went here, I went that. Then why did you go through all these things? So that today I can help business owners navigate blah 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 blah. So your purpose, we talk about the problem you want to solve plus the solution you are offering them. So your brand story should have this. All of them may not be amplified in the same way, but you should try as much as you can to have this element involved. So this should be a guideline for us. So let's create our stories. So she's going, do you still want to go first or you want to process? Okay. Just be free, it's your story now. Just be free.
And okay, I think as I speak, so
Okay.
I tend to sometimes say too many stories, or say 2-3 stories for 2-3 events at point. I think I'm just getting to realize that I'm that kind of person. I can do too many things at the same time. But let me pick one, which is trying to make a child read. So I could tell the story of when I was young. Say I'm talking to a 5-year-old child now, and I want the child to start reading in, say, 5 years, 3 months, or 5 years, 6 months. I could tell the story of when I was young, I struggled on how I could pronounce words, merge letters together, and I had a tutor who helped me through this process. But the way she did it was, whenever I am able to merge 2 letters together and give a pronunciation, I have a gift for it. Or better still, each time I improve on my merging of words or trying to read, I get a gift or I get to go out with my parents.
Okay, let's do public speaking. Please, can you?
Jesus
Can
Christ.
you step
That would be more practical.
out? Can you step out? So we are not in a conference.
Yeah. The vibe is just
The vibe is increasing. But if they are hot, turn on the AC.
Yes, please.
Can they turn on the AC?
Honestly.
Okay, I think they can you help turn on the AC?
That's it. So now you want
Okay. We are all the audience.
Can't I sit?
No, please stand.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity to share the story. Okay, I see. Am I rephrasing?
You said?
Am I rephrasing?
Just tell us your story.
Oh God. All right. Tell this man to stop what he's doing, please. You're distracting me. I won't concentrate.
The photographer?
Yes.
No, you don't have to. Please take the camera.
Please
Take the
don't.
camera. That's how we are in training. Please take out pictures. Because when you get there on that global stage, you can't ask the cameraman not to take pictures of you. So imagine you are speaking to 10,000 parents who have children that are not really learning well. And you have an organization that solves their problem and you want them to know about it. You just want to see that the way that teacher helped you grow, helped you overcome your difficulty. You want to help as much as 5,000 children do so, and then you are in a gathering that has 1,000 parents. So everybody is looking at you. You're on CNN. The press are here. They want to hear your voice. They want to publish you on the newspaper. So what would you tell them? The critics are also here.
Of course. Okay, let's start with no child is a donut instead of learning the child will. Now, most times when we talk about donut, the first thing that comes to our mind is they don't know how to read, they don't know how to write. They're this age, they don't know how to do this, they don't know how to do that. We have a lot of parents complain about that. Now, I'm no longer telling the story to a child, I'm telling it to a parent's audience now.
Yes, parents' audience.
Okay. My audiences are parents, either the guardian or direct biological parents or just formal parents.
Okay.
Now, I'm trying to let you know that the child you call dullard, the child you think he doesn't know anything, has so much in stock.
Is that the purpose of your story?
Yes.
Don't tell us the purpose. One of the characteristics of the good story is that it explains itself. So don't tell us.
Okay.
Let us be able to tell you without you telling us.
Can I sit down? I'll be more composed.
No. This is a public speaking class, so let's do
Maybe
it.
she can sit down, compose
now.
herself when let others go, and then
That'd
do
be
that.
But I will still remain seated,
You
right?
stand during
You
your
end
session.
up standing.
It doesn't make a difference.
Okay, so carry on. You are there already. So just it's your story. Imagine if 1,000 of those parents bring their children to you. Okay.
Okay, so sorry for telling you the purpose of the story, but let's get down to the story. When I was young, I'm a child that I don't need to read. I'm not the reading type. All I needed to do was be in a class. But I have other mates, or other people rather, that they have to read before they pass. And there are some others, just hear another person read. Some people are tagged the magnetic kind of brain. Some are slow learners. Some are tagged, you don't even know what you're doing. Either you're in class, you're writing notes, you're reading, it just feels like nothing was working. But for me, what worked for me was being in class. But nobody knew that I don't like reading. They just felt I was a genius because I was doing pretty well in school. But when I moved from the elementary school to a junior secondary school, tides changed. I was topping my class all through my elementary school. When I got to my junior secondary school, my first term result, my position was half of the class. So take for instance, we had 50 students. I came 25th. And my dad was surprised. Everybody felt, you won't play a game. But nobody realized that I was not reading. I had never been the reading type. I don't know if you can relate with me.
Yes.
Now, some of us, we have to dig our heads into the book, like read it over and over. Some just have to read it once. But for me, I wasn't reading at all. So if the teacher passes the message, is not communicating, I'm not understanding what you're saying, I don't know anything. I just come to class, even though my notes is complete, I just come to class, take down the notes, and I'm out of the class. But if I understood what he or she was trying to pass across during the explanation, I'm good. Now, I got 25th position, for instance, I said, right, half of the class. And the second term, my parents got me a lesson teacher. Now, another mistake the teacher tried all she could. Every method available to her. She's a namesake. She went as far as praying and fasting. If I want to write exam, she would tell me, I've been praying on this pen for the last 7 days. And God does not fail. You know, for some reasons I will go to the exam hall with a pen and will be wondering, no magic is happening. I wasn't getting better until I got to my senior secondary school. And then I met a friend. He reads like a machine. In the weirdest states of mind, he reads. He will tell me that's all I know how to do. So over time, my parents didn't know what was happening to me. My teachers felt I was playing. I had older ones who believed I'm beginning to have a boyfriend. Some felt you're participating in church activities too much. A lot of things was cut down for me in those times, but nothing changed. When I met this particular person, I enjoyed the way he reads. Reading is a hobby for him. Just like playing tennis is a hobby for someone else. And I realized that he's doing better. All I needed to do was to move closer. I wanted to do better. Even if not more than he was doing, I wanted to do better as much as he was doing. And I started reading. Gradually, my grades started improving. My parents were like, what's in Dora? She no longer plays. She no longer do this. Okay, probably the boyfriend she had dumped him. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Most especially the Yoruba kinds of parents. There are days where you have to take strokes. Even they don't know what you have done. They just assume that you are probably watching a movie in a neighbor's house, or instead of coming down home from school, you branched somewhere. Eventually, I got better over time. I do not need this friend of mine to keep up my reading skill. It finally graduated into a habit. I could pick up book on my own, or books as the case may be, read and assimilate and understand. And eventually, I started doing well. And the same girl that they felt was good at a point, suddenly wasn't good anymore, or became a dullard for one reason or the other. It's now someone who is inspiring others. And it's not just inspiring others now, but teaching others, making better students, making better another life that we felt it's all gone. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Awesome. Thank you for being open enough to that end. And let me touch the story a bit to modify that end part. I saw that you were already looking at how to end it and bring it into the context. You are speaking to parents who you want at the end of the day to understand the value of having a professional tutor. A personal tutor, am I correct?
yeah.
A personal tutor for their kids. Is that fine? Or what do you do? Isn't that your work?
Yeah, that's what I do.
So we are looking at a story that can help you sell your work. Was that the story you were telling? Or your personal story? That story can go into 2 ways.
Good. I don't know. It's not actually for the purpose of private tutoring now, but to make you think that a child is not doing well because of some reasons without finding out
The reason.
Yeah.
You should find out, and to also say that. So there are many things that can come out from the story. So it depends on the audience now. So if I'm talking to parents who really need to understand their children better, I could say that I struggled a lot. My parents disciplined me a lot without even knowing the cause of my struggle. They thought I was playing. They thought I was doing certain things more than I should. Meanwhile, my challenge was that I really wasn't interested in reading. So as parents, I have seen firsthand what can happen when a child is not understood by their parents. So I want to encourage you parents to understand your children. Fine. Then you can also tell your story to portray the fact that a struggling child can become a brilliant child. Let's assume you are speaking to students who are struggling. So you tell them, formerly I was celebrated, people thought I was there, this and this, until I began to do poorly because of this, because of that. I struggled for a long time, I suffered a lot, my parents disciplined me more and more, they felt I was lost, they felt this and that. However, a time came in my life where I met a certain young man. This man had a passion for reading, blah, 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 and at some point, he's a young boy rather, he inspired me, and I began to like to read. And because of that, my singular decision, I started improving in my grades. And today, here am I. I am not just good for myself, I am also able to help other children become better. So as a student, regardless of your current struggle, if you take responsibility, you can become better. Now, if you want to tell your story to a group of parents, you want them to patronize your service, you can paint a picture. Like, okay, I struggled as a child. My parents didn't know, but it was terrible for me. The diminishing self-esteem, the pain, that loneliness that comes with no longer being trusted as a child is terrifying. And whether we like it or not, many of our children are experiencing that. They don't know how to talk to you, their parents, because they struggle in their academics and you don't know why. For many of these children, they just need a hand. Somebody that can hold them by the hands and show them the way. And that is what we do as also company. We help struggling learners become outstanding learners. So you have 3 stories from a single story. So if depending on the setting you are going, you can modify your story to match. Are you getting it? Now that's the beauty of storytelling. You can use your story anywhere, anyhow. Alright, so I don't know, did that help in any way?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you. Alright, let's hear you, sir.
Let's hear you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. It's real when you're there.
Speaker, stage presence, facing audience,
Eloquence.
eloquence, show us you are glad to be here. You want to tell us one of the best stories of your life, which is your story. You're excited, you are confident, and you can't wait to tell us.
Okay, let me establish the scene. I'll be telling a story with the assumption I'm talking to.
Okay.
I'm talking to prospective, how would I say?
Use the stage, where's your stage?
Okay.
No.
Because I don't want this to
Yes,
get
just
into my
take
eyes.
this position. But don't tilt, don't go like this.
That's
Just
I'll be telling this story to people, prospective clients in my accounting, auditing / business analysis firm.
okay.
So the story is like this. Recently, I met 3 young ladies who were entrepreneurs, but unfortunately, their business failed. They have gone back to their 9-to-5 jobs, sadly, and they still had this passion for business, but the disappointments that they had met in the past has kept them tied to their jobs. The first lady went into fruit selling. She was selling lots of fruit, and one thing she learned from different programs was that consistency was important. So she made sure she had all fruits available throughout all the months of the year at all points. Now she had an accountant who was keeping records for her. But what the accountant was doing was that at the end of the year, the accountant compiles all the expenses and the income for the year and then splits it into 12 equal parts, which makes it easier to represent each month of the year. Right? Now, after the first initial, she started her business on October, and she noticed she had a boost, high income compared to expenses. But after January, she noticed that income was not as much as before. So she employed a business analyst to go through her books, and going through the books, the business analyst said, everything is fine, I think you should look outward for other issues. Now the second friend, and that's how the trend continued until gradually, that low period of January to October ended up draining the capital of the business from the high periods of October to December. The second person sells clothes, right? And she had a very nice business brand. She had a very nice idea of what she was doing. She was very good at what she was doing, and of course, she was reaping the dividends, right? However, because of how engrossed she was in what she was doing, she forgot to keep detailed records. And so she was not monitoring trends, she was not monitoring expenses, income, and as such. However, she was very happy because she was always making sales. Right? At the end of the day, after a while, she noticed that when she wanted to buy materials at one point, she noticed that the cash in the business available to spend was way below the expectation to meet this particular order, right? And this led to disappointing the client, and gradually led to a domino effect of the business failing, right? So third story.
Third,
The third person.
The third
third
person.
person, okay.
So this third person had a very, very good business too. All three of them had wonderful business. But what happened with this third person was that her accountant was recording the business based on this person is a contractor. So they build buildings, they go on huge projects, right? And then her accountant was recording the income as it comes in. So if they go on a project, they give them a contract to build a hotel. She comes in and the accountant comes in and records the 300 million that came in for that project as an income